Hi, my name is Emma and let's talk spooky stuff. So today is a special day because me and my friend Mariana, who is also known as Vikinga Lectora, I hope I pronounced that right, I butcher everything, I'm sorry. She's from Mexico and I'm from Australia, and we've decided that it'd be a really cool idea if we swapped countries' horror films. So she's picked for me 3 films from Mexico that show kind of cultural differences, and I've picked for her 3 films from Australia that hopefully she'll really enjoy. And now she's gonna tell you a little bit about the films.
Hello everyone, my name is Mariana from the YouTube channel Vikinga Lectora, and I'm super excited to be here as a guest of Emma's. And what we're going to do today is that I asked Emma to watch some Mexican horror films so she could share her thoughts on them. It was really hard to find some films that Emma hadn't watched before, but we finally narrowed it down to 3 films. The first one I recommended to her is called El Libro de Piedra, or The Book of Stone. This one is a huge horror classic here in Mexico, and it's about a girl that has a very creepy imaginary friend. The second film is called Joquel, and it's a modern take on an ancient legend of Mexico, so I thought it would be really interesting to throw some folklore into the mix. The third one is called México Bárbaro, and this one is a horror anthology that has many points of views of different horror film directors that talk about folklore but also about problems that Mexico is facing right now. So I thought it should be interesting for her to see what's going on. So let's hear what her thoughts were on them. I'm really excited, and once again, thanks a lot, Emma, for inviting me here. I'm a huge fan of yours.
Thanks, Mariana, I'm a fan of yours too. And guys, remember to go check out our channel, especially if you habla español. But before I watch these films, I'm gonna give you guys a little prediction and tell you what I expect to learn from this. So the main differences I think I'll find in the Mexican horror films will definitely be cultural, it will be religious, I think there'll be more spirituality, and also the landscape will be a little bit different, obviously. I assume Mexico looks very different to Australia, but from what I know, it's a lot of concrete. I know it's very colorful, but I probably won't assume that will be in the horror movies. But there'll be a lot of population in a smaller area, unlike Australia that's very spread out, and there's a lot of room to get stranded and bad stuff to happen to you in the outback, where I think that the danger from the horror movies in Mexico will probably come from either the people or paranormal experiences. So I'm super excited to see these films that Mariana picked, and I'll let you guys know what I thought of the films. Let's start with Joquel. This one is interesting. Firstly, it's kind of like that whole classic case of the skeptic going in and trying to figure out if like the spiritual being is a real thing. It had good intentions, but I felt like the execution was a little bit messy. The plot involved an American man going to Mexico, a small village in Mexico, to visit his mother, who he doesn't really have a good relationship with because his half-sister has disappeared. But when he gets there, he learns about the legend of Joquel, which is also known as the Weeping Woman. It's a woman who actually takes children to claim as her own. This film was low budget, but it definitely played into the folklore and like spirituality, paranormal type thing that I expected. It also had some really cool soundtrack with like these creepy kids singing in the background, which I also really enjoyed. And the majority of the film was actually in English because the American could not speak Spanish, which kind of is helpful for those kind of people who don't like subtitles, but obviously I don't have a problem with them. I really like the premise of the film being about a folklore, and the woman kind of reminded me of like something you would see in a Japanese film, because they have very much like a rage curse thing where someone can't leave because they are doomed to repeat themselves. It was very similar to that. But because this film was very low budget, it was also very cheesy, and I think it had potential to come through, but it just fell flat for me at the end. I'd really like to see this remade with like a bigger budget, just some better actors. Sorry. I think it really has potential and it could make itself into a great film. Next is Book of Stone. I really like this film. It's a complete classic. If you like classic horror, this is definitely the one for you. It reminded me of Poison for the fairies, and also even The Wind is Afraid, which is like a Mexican film I must have spoken about before. I've definitely seen it and talked about it on this channel, but it's very straightforward and it allows you to get into the storyline completely and not feel like you have to guess or turn. You can just like go with the characters, if that makes any sense. This is about a governess who comes to work for a really well-off family, but something is a bit strange with the child. She actually has this really crazy fascination with this statue that's in the yard. For me, this film was a complete treat. The editing I thought was really cutting edge actually for its age. There was a couple of shots where they did reaction shots, so you know, someone and then they do a reverse shot and they cut back and forth like so many times that it seemed very purposeful. Things like that really you wouldn't see in a late 60s, early 70s type film, so I really appreciated that. I also really liked that theatrical music that comes along with classics like this. I was kind of wrong with my predictions on this one. It wasn't all around spirituality, a little bit of paranormal, but there was spiritual, religious aspects put into it. They would go play at an abandoned church, and also one of the characters talk about how she's a very superstitious woman, and I guess that wouldn't really happen where I'm from, so it's interesting to see it in that respect. I really enjoyed the tone and the subject matter of this film. The girl was really psycho and the ending was really cool. And I've saved the best for last, Mexican Barbaro. I really hope I pronounced that right. You guys are gonna be so stoked about this one if you haven't seen it. This is the most craziest anthology horror film I've ever seen, and it totally gets my vote. I think there was about 8 different stories in this movie, each running for around 10 minutes each, and they also had completely different subject matters and storylines. They were completely disconnected from each other, which I really liked. They had some really gory, vulgar, dark, really well shot stories. Everything was amazing and I liked everyone more than the other kind of slowly, but they are very vulgar. There's even a part where this goblin type creature is raping this girl. It's very vulgar. I haven't seen something like this in a long time. And crazy enough, there was actually one story that involved the Island of Dolls, which if you watched my video last week on the most haunted places on Earth, that was what I talked about. And in addition to that, there was also this really cool stylized one where it was kind of like an American slasher with like a cabin in the woods, and there was like a creature watching the cabin, POV style, kind of like Evil Dead, and it's all about her virginity, which is also obviously very classic horror. I really think you guys will love this film, so please check it out. I rented it on Vimeo, not plugged, not sponsored. I just think it's the quickest way to access a film like this, so definitely check it out. So Mariana, what did I learn? I learned I was completely wrong about some things, and I was completely right about some things. I knew that there would be like spirituality trickled into there. I knew that there would be some kind of religious icons throughout the whole thing, which is true. It was very paranormal based, yes, but you know what I was wrong about? The landscapes. There was one point in Mexico Barbaro where the girl was walking across this landscape and it looked exactly like Australia. It even had like paper bark trees or something that looks very similar, which is, you know, a known Australian native. I thought it was so interesting, even though there was some parts where they were in cities which look a little bit different, but I was really surprised with like the actual landscapes and the rural areas where I talked about before how the outback is something to be lost in Australia. I think some of our Australian films would probably actually work over there. I had so much fun doing this with you, Mariana, and everybody, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. It's so great to know that we all live in different places and we all love horror. It's just so unified. Anyway, I'm gonna stop being a creep right now and I'm gonna send you over to Mariana's channel. Don't forget to go check it out, and I'll talk to you guys later. Stay spooky. Bye.